Today, I'm joined by David Fung from Fung Bros. If you're anywhere near the Asian American content space, you already know who he is. He has been creating around Asian American culture, identity, and food for over a decade, born and raised in the US and now living in Vietnam. We have two spicy topics for you guys today. Dating in Asia versus North America from the perspective of Asian men and women, and Chinese provincial differences and what that means for you if you are Chinese diaspora. As you guys know, I'm Crystal, founder of Asian Rebel Club, born in China, lived across 9 countries in Asia and North America. So I see both worlds from the inside, which is exactly why this conversation needed to happen. And David, over to you. Tell us who you are.
My name is David Fung. I'm from Seattle, Washington originally, but I lived a lot in LA, New York, obviously the entertainment media capitals, but mostly I was online, but did some mainstream stuff as well. And yeah, I think that Fung Bros, me and my brother Andrew have just been talking about Asian America, Chinese America, the diaspora, Asia, just a lot. You know what I mean? Like a lot over the years, and we're still doing it.
So is it the first conversation you've ever had with a female counterpart talking about these topics? Well, probably not, right? Because you've talked to
Not
people.
in, there was a few small, like, podcasters, but you're the first, like, big female that we've had. Obviously, you're on a lot, Andrew did the Amsterdam podcast or, like, Jeff Kung's podcast,
Yeah.
or I don't even know how many podcasts we've been on over the years. But to be honest, you are the first female that I've ever seen it from a female and a male perspective. Like, I don't think I ever saw, yeah, like a deep, I don't know how I don't even wanna say it this way, but, like, I was gonna say, really like a Asian female-led, now, I don't wanna say that there's none, 'cause, we were on one in Brooklyn, but it was, like, a very small channel, but,
Right.
like, the first large platform where a Asian female sort of is talking about guy issues, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like I would definitely think that I'm just a guy in a girl's body, to be honest with you. I love intellectual debate about sociology and psychology. So let's dive right in. The first topic is basically dating in Asia versus North America.
I know in your content, you've talked about the transactional dating nature in, like, China. Do you think that that's dramatically different from North America, or North America just hides the transactional nature through more layers?
Well, I think, first of all, dating is inherently transactional, right? Like, I know this is probably a hot take, but not really, because you are looking for something in the other person while you're going on for a date. Doesn't matter whether it's tangible, right, or intangible, like emotional values. So, like, it's really about like whether you wanted to make the transactions, like what you're looking for, more overt, or you wanted to hide it in like more polite way. And the way I see in Asia is that in a lot of places like Singapore, because I live in Singapore, I live in China, is that people are just more used to having the transaction out on the table. So like, even if go to India, like I used to have a roommate who's Indian, and he would show me this dating app that he used. And, there's a lot of bio data on the app where like person is like a lower caste or a lower class, and everything is just like for you to know before you can even choose this person, right? And it's the same thing with China, where like, I remember going to a interview in my career, and the person was like a CEO of a public company, but he's Chinese. And the first thing he asked me was that, what does your dad do? And it's just very odd. Like they see this as like such a normal question to ask, and they just weed you out like very quickly, where, like, what is your class? What is the benefit you can bring to me? Or are you going to be a liability? Right. And then, so like, I see that same dynamic happening in dating where people are very defensive. I think that Asian culture is a very defensive culture. It's all about, I don't want to lose. So like, they're protecting themselves. So it's like, how many houses do you have? How, what is my salary? And then like each party will want to like prepare the war chest so that like they don't get into like a losing deal. It's just such a transactional mentality out in the open. Now, like I think in North America, like because America and in Canada, like I lived in Canada for a long time too. And it's just like such a diverse society. Everybody values different things, and you're supposed to value that, right? And a lot of like, I don't know, like you can value chemistry, you can value adventure, you can value like spiritual costs and political costs, like to each their own. So it's not one dimensional transactional, but it is kind of transactional in terms of like what you're looking for, right? Because like how much of it, for example, is chemistry is coming from this person's status. Like let's just say all things equal. Like a person who, is 6 feet, I don't know, like white guy, like trust fund finance, whatever, in Manhattan, and a person who isn't, right? Like, I don't know, homeless artist, like everything else equal, right? Like, which one would you choose? Like, I would say most people will probably choose the first one. And is that transaction? Like, I don't know. Like, I think that is. It's just that they don't really talk about it as much as Chinese people do.
Yeah, I think that there's always like this Pokemon card game or like Magic card game or Dungeons and Dragons aspect to like matchups. You put down this card of the female, and then you put down this card of the male, or the male and then the female. And I think that to your point, Asian culture in general, or ancient societies in general, let's just take this out and bring it to the Middle East or like India or something like that. Like ancient societies, they're more comfortable like putting the hard stats on each of the cards that you're playing in the game.
Yeah.
Whereas like Western people would be like, why do you
Yeah.
need to look at it like a card game like Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering? In Asia, they would just, or ancient societies in general, the East, whatever you want to call it, is the Middle East, right? Like they would just be like, nah, that's the stats. Like we put down the stats, the family name, what the father does. If the if this match is either gonna go off these stats or not. Like to your point, the Shanghai dating market, and they don't even have photos of each other. Like in the West, the photos would be everything. You just Tinder, like people don't even care about what the other stats are. It's just gonna go off physiology or phenotype or like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and Shanghai it just was listing stats like no photos, no nothing.
I think it's
That's really
as
intense.
also, yeah. Yeah, it is. It's like literally like marriage resume in the market.
Well, in the West, it's just gonna come down to looks. Like that would be like the initial filter. You know what I mean? Like in China and
Yeah.
Shanghai dating market, that's the final, like the afterthought.
They don't care about it. They don't care.
Yeah, that's crazy. That would be the craziest.
Yeah.
I would think if you just look at the Shanghai marriage market with pure stats, no anything else, they got like an essay that the daughter or the son wrote in like 11th grade to show like their poetic skills or something. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like one thing, I think the most hilarious thing I've seen was that this guy in his like marriage resume, he was like, I'm an older guy and I'm a virgin. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why would that even be on your resume? Like, why would I want to be with a virgin guy? Like, but
But
yeah,
guys would
they're
want to
like
be with a
funny stuff
virgin
like
girl
that.
though. So I could see his thinking because he's like, yeah, that's just like everybody want that from a girl. They're gonna want that from me too. But then it just doesn't work the
I
same.
mean, I don't know. Like I think that if a guy is like, virgin in his like 40s and 50s, like I would think there's something wrong with you. So like
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I even
Well,
told
it's
my
like a
dad that, and my
key.
dad was like, yeah,
Well, it's like a
sorry,
key that
saying
couldn't
again.
unlock any doors, but sometimes people would be interested in a door that's never been unlocked.
Yeah, exactly. So I even told my dad that, and my dad was like, that's so weird. It's like there is no way for you to verify that, right? About a guy's virginity. So,
That's
but
actually pretty
anyway,
funny. That's funny that your dad took it to the biology level. That's actually funny too. Like a physician.
my dad is super open. Like he does not care about these topics. He will just give me
Yo, that
my
is such a
his honest
Chinese
take. But
answer, like
anyway,
hyper, like logical to
yeah.
the.
So what's your take on that? Because like obviously you now live in Vietnam, and I know that you mentioned before, like in North America, you also dated Asian women. But like, do you see the dynamic changing? As you're now here.
Like Asian America is like the middle point. Asia is like super put the
Mhm.
stats out there, transactional.
Yeah.
Asian America's here and the West is like a little bit more over here. But if you look at the elites of the Western world, they operate a little bit more like Asians, low key. Like the elites, like
Yes.
Northeastern
Yes.
elites, Rhode Island,
Yeah.
Providence, Delaware, whatever, Massachusetts, they're gonna low key act more Asian, but they still gonna on the
Yeah.
outside pretend like, oh yeah, you can marry that like broke, like wannabe rock star, that didn't make it yet. But like once you get to where I'm from on the West Coast, where you're really free from these like old institutions, like if you look at all the Ivy League universities, they're all on the East Coast, where they have more of that
Yeah.
like British bloodline thinking. Like in Seattle, like you do see, I knew this hot white girl that we grew up with who married this like Mexican dishwasher that she worked at the Tex-Mex restaurant. And she was hot too. Like
Mhm.
that's unheard of.
That's insane. Mhm.
Like that's like a
Yeah.
and that's not even that uncommon. Yeah, it was still kind of a shock in the town, but it wasn't even like that big of a shock because we're just like, oh yeah, like she's just going
Right.
for love. So it's like that's never gonna happen in an ancient society. Like it's not, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say never, but they're gonna make a movie out of it like Aladdin. You know what I mean? Like that's how uncommon it is. It's
Yeah.
gonna be like stuff for the fairy tales for generations to come. But yeah, in the West, people marry for a vibe, for love, but they also gonna get divorced off a vibe or
Yeah.
lack of a vibe.
Yeah.
So I think that
Yeah. Yeah.
because people don't really view divorce in the West as like a stain on a scarlet letter on you in perpetuity. Whereas in the East, it might be like a scar. I mean, I think it's changing now in 2026, but for a while, it's like you damage goods forever.
Oh my gosh, in China, because currently I'm in Shanghai, right? And my friends told me the craziest stories where, like, first of all, everybody's getting a divorce. Shocking. I think half of my female friends were divorced. And they also were saying that, because one of my guy friends who took forever to get married, and they're like, please get married soon because the second marriage market is very competitive. Because a lot of them, get divorced and like, they're already in the second marriage market, right? While like he's still in the first marriage market. So they were trying to warn him.
So that's really funny. That's really funny to tell somebody before their first marriage to already prepare for their second
Yeah.
marriage.
Oh my gosh. So like I think a lot of Chinese people don't really have, or like Asian in general, don't really have commitment issues. Like that's such an American thing. So they just don't care. Like they will get committed, they will get married. And worst case scenario, they get a divorce and blame on their parents. They're like, you see, I did this for you and it's like not working out. So I think for Westerners, they simply just like have commitment issues and they don't even do it.
Yeah, I think that like dating apps really destroyed the West because you could find a new wife or a new husband in like 10 minutes. Like if you think about back in the
Well,
parochial days, like living in the
yeah.
village, like just human interaction like didn't occur that way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but like you think like that, right? But it's just idea of it, that is not really the reality either.
Yeah, the East is more transactional than the West, but I think the West can be more transactional, but they hide it behind a lot of layers. But it depends per person. Like for
Yeah,
sure, dude, white people, I mean, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think they just conquered so much in the world over the past 500 years. They can kind of like make a bad decision of their partner. They don't need to like empire build and bloodline build and multi-generational like aristocracy build anymore. They like past that point. You know what I mean? Like they're just like, oh yeah, let's do it. Why not? Like, who cares? But like minorities are like, we still thinking in the ancient way. We're not from a new world country. We're from an ancient country that still holds like some ancient beliefs.
I definitely think there is a huge difference between the overseas Asian, right? Like Asian American versus like a huge country like China. Like people here don't really have scarcity mindset like that anymore. Like in a lot of groups, right? Obviously, in a lot of groups they still do, but like as people get richer, they also start to think a little bit more like Westerners in that department.
Because like technically a Chinese person in China is the white person of the West because they're the
Yes.
majority
Yeah.
that hold the power and the leverage and etc.
Yeah, totally. So, okay. So the question for you, Asian women and men, who has more dating trauma, you think? Or rather in the West, right? Like we're not talking about in Asia.
Man, in the West, I think the easy answer for anybody to give is Asian men for sure. But I could see the argument for Asian women having more trauma because it's just a completely different situation. I think Asian women are actually in the game, but they're getting played out a lot in the game. You know what I mean? Because like there's some
Yeah.
things that make Asian women feel like they can compete, but then right at the moment it gets pulled back. But Asian guys are not even in the game. We are like forced to be either stay in the enclaves, import a wife from Asia,
Yeah.
or kind of like not even be in the game. Now, the young Gen Z guys, especially if you're really tall and good looking, they're starting to get in the game more. Like for sure, for Gen Z,
Yeah.
like 25, 28 and under. But I'm talking about for like millennials and Gen X, you're either dating like exclusively Asian women in the US or you're dating like a fob chick from Asia, And so we can't be in the white world to get our heart ripped out. But I'm saying that Asian women can be in the white world, but oftentimes at least once they will have their heart ripped out like by a guy who didn't want to marry him. He wanted to marry a white girl.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That the Joy Luck Club type situation,
Yeah.
like, that does happen. So I guess it's
Yeah.
two different types of trauma. One is you're in a combatant in the game, but you have your heart ripped out. at the last moment, and one you couldn't even get into the MMA. You know, you stuck fighting in B League.
There's also like a FOMO around not being in the game. Do you see the situation being like a little bit better in places like New York? Because obviously there's more women than men. And
For sure.
everybody who I have known, yeah, who's gone to New York would just like, they just get into a candy shop.
Yeah, I agree, but a lot of people don't understand that. Like, New York is not America. Like, I dated a girl that looks white in New York, but her mom was like a white Uruguayan, and her dad was white.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like she was white, but she really wasn't
Yeah.
white. She spoke Spanish, ate a lot of Latino foods. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like that really
Right.
is gonna you're essentially outside of the Anglosphere when you're in New York City because it's like such a collection of people from around the world. So I think that
Yeah.
I never count that. Like, I don't like it when Asian guys date like a girl that they don't visually look like they should be dating, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, Asian guys have it good." I'm like, "Nah," because I lived in a really white like Americana zone, and then I lived in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Manhattan, yes, to your point, is dope for a guy who can figure it out or be cool or whatever, but it's not representative of the larger game map.
Right.
Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
Like, I guess what I'm saying it's such an international place. It's almost like saying, like, is dating in Shanghai representative of dating in some village in China?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess, if you do move to San Francisco, then it's like the other way around, right? It's like these people have like no luck because the discrepancy is just so big. I agree with you. I think that like I think a lot of people are like not necessarily trauma. It's just like they don't really have the trauma of I learned something in the relationship because like I think relationships is something that you gotta practice, right? Like every single breakup, everything single date teaches you something about yourself. And then over time, you get better at it. You also get more considerate and whatever towards another person. But if a man never even played that game, like how can they even get better? So it's like if you're looking at a person who's like 45 years old and only got like a one relationship, like they're probably really bad at this, right? Like, I don't know. I'm just stereotyping that. So like, I don't know, like trauma aside, I think it's just one of those things where like the later you get into the game, the worse you probably play it too. So, there's like accumulative layers of trauma as you go.
Yeah, yeah. What I guess answer your question, to sum it all up, what type of trauma are we talking about? Asian girls are gonna have a ton of repetitions. We
Yeah.
call them reps in basketball, like a ton of reps, but
Yeah.
some of those reps could have went downside on them. But Asian guys, the trauma comes from like I wanted to get reps, but
Right.
maybe I didn't even get the reps that I wanted in practice. Like I
You
didn't even
can.
get in the game.
Yeah. 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 For sure. I gotta say, I did see some statistics like yesterday, a white girl talking about girl versus like passport bro. And she said that on average, I think like an American girl, and this is like race aside, would have about 7 sexual partner by the age of 30. But then like a lot of men will have zero by the age of 30. So, I mean, that's kind of the discrepancy we're talking about, even race aside, right? This is just how it is, like the age that we're living right now in the US at least.
Yeah, I think it's just whatever's happening in the Western world, specifically America with dating is like there's like a macro thing, and then there's micro slipstream trends within that. That's like Asian men's overall status improving, but then all men may be struggling as a general title boat thing. So there's a lot of competing trends, micro trends versus macro trends. Why do you think high achieving Asian women are actually less dateable in the marketplace? Like whether we're talking about Asia or America. I heard American women complain about this to some extent, but
Yeah.
obviously you're living in
Yeah.
Shanghai and you see it a lot more. I think it might even be more stark in the East.
Yes, it's interesting because I usually live in Singapore. I'm in Shanghai for a month. So it's almost like I'm having this like separate pocket for Shanghai and like Singapore, right? And they are surprisingly different. We're talking about this high achieving thing because Singaporean women are not notorious, but they're famous for their high achieving attitude, right? There's one thing about Singapore because like guys need to go to army. So like when a guy starts their career, they're 2 years behind their female counterpart because the woman does not need to go to the army. So you can see like 2 years of professional experience will make the women even more like intimidating, right? Career wise to like a man. And so a lot of Singaporeans are like super high achieving. And I don't think that they have the same kind of problem as the girl here in Shanghai. Like, it's just insane how so, like, we're talking about the marketplace in, the people square, right? Like the dating corner. And a lot of these bios are actually from women. More of them are from women than a guy. And I think the reason is they're just very competitive, right? They're competing with men instead of like complimenting the men. So a lot of traditional Chinese men, right? They still want agreeable, domesticated, submissive girls. And these girls, because they're gonna be very kind of aggressive and like ambitious in their career, they don't really have that like kind of femininity anymore, and they're rewarded for that in their careers. So it's like you got to pick and choose who you want to be, right? You're either this person in your career, this one that got rewarded by your career, or you become something completely different, which may or may not get rewarded by this man, because like dating is risky, right? So I think a lot of them, they kind of run the ROI subconsciously and they have made their bet. Versus in Singapore, I think that the men are just more accommodating in general. So they actually don't mind, like the woman taking the lead a little bit.
Yeah, maybe in Singapore too, they're kind of stuck. Like you can't really, there's no countryside. You can't get a hot girl from the countryside in Singapore. Like there is a limited population. There's only 3 million, maybe 4 million people in the whole country. Like in China, there's 1.4 billion. Like
Six.
you can
Hmm.
go to Anhui, get a baddie that's feminine, I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, I could see like Shanghainese, like high achieving women just being so demanding that it's just like
Yeah.
crushing for any guy that hits their standard, Because guys that hit their standard,
Yeah.
we also got a lot of options and they just don't want to adapt to like the, because, like we were talking about earlier, it's like, I think a lot of Chinese girls in the one child policy in China is raised like men, like, because the dad have to put
Yes.
the
Yeah.
mental testosterone in them too, because he's not gonna have a son. So it has to be the heir to the empire, whatever mini empire every family, accumulates. So it's like the woman is
Yeah.
is raised by the mom like a woman, but raised by the man like the father like a son. So I think that
Yeah.
it's very difficult because like that the son side probably helps them achieve in their career or like rise up that like NBA style, like lateral ladder, you know what I mean? Like a little jumping up and stuff, but it's not feminine for what the guy wants to be like coming home to every day.
Yeah, yeah, no, they don't. They actually, I think that they, because they have such a high standard for themselves, they tend to like look down upon men who don't necessarily have the same standard or higher than them, right, towards themselves. So it's like they're literally measuring themselves and the man with the same ruler, right? These women are not complementary to men. They're more competitive with men. And that's why they have such a big problem in the dating market where they're supposed to be complementary towards each other.
Yeah. I remember I knew this girl in Beijing and her parents like own like a chemical company and she had so many demands of her husband, like had to be stay at home in Beijing. She got to go for these big trips all the time to like go to conferences and stuff like that. She just ended up with like a nice, sweet beta, like half white guy, you know,
Yeah.
because like a white guy is more likely to like accept this positioning with like a power female and then he
Yeah.
can provide softness and the emotional support. But if she wants another Chinese
Yeah. That's
alpha, first of all, that hits her physical standards, he's not going to want to put up with the demands. You know what I mean? Like I
yeah.
couldn't
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. I see that all the time.
Yeah, just get the beta white guy or part white guy. That's the solution, to be honest. Like,
That is a solution. Okay. So the next question for you is, why does Asian male market value go up when they leave America, but Asian women does not change the same way?
obviously, when Asian guys go to Asia, they're in a patriarchal society. It's been that way for thousands of years. Asian men run Asia, to be honest. Like for the most part, I think outside of Thailand and maybe Japan now, those are the only two countries that have the female prime minister. I think South Korea did as well, but her dad was the prime minister. Obviously, in the white world, I think that Asian women, that's their best play, like because they're going to be able to play the Asian female card, which is desirable, the female card, which is having a moment, obviously since the feminist movement in the 70s. And there's just a lot more benefits, I think, to being an Asian female in the West than an Asian female in the East. And there's a lot of benefits to being an Asian guy in the East where there's a lot of disadvantages to being an Asian male in the West. I mean, it's as easy as like who
Right.
runs the respective hemispheres. So I meet a lot of Asian guys that are in Asia for like 10, 15, 20 years. You know what I mean? But I don't meet a lot
Yeah.
of Asian girls that West, like, I would say, like, it's like 10-1 on the expat level. Like, I'm sure even in
Right,
Shanghai,
right, right.
feminine, like, female coded city with the manor coffees and everything, but, like, it's even then, I would imagine it's, like, maybe 8-1. Like, I think females feel more comfortable moving to, Shanghai than, like, Ho Chi Minh or something, you know what I mean? Like, Bangkok or something like that
Yeah.
is, like, hyper male centric. Yeah, like, I just think that the volume of expats is so heavily weighted on, Asian American males than Asian American females.
Yeah, I would say, that's definitely a problem in the expat community here in Asia, right? Because it's funny because I'm an expat in Singapore, but I'm a local here in China. It doesn't matter whether you're an Asian girl or you're a white girl. Actually, a white girl struggles even more in the Singapore expat community just because a lot of Asian men still prefer Asian women. So, like, if you're like a white girl in Singapore, like, if you break up with a white guy, and a white guy has a lot more options in Singapore, right? Comparison to white girls, like, they really struggle in their personal life. And it's the same thing here. I remember one of my friends, she said that, like, everything was good in Shanghai except for dating, because dating was really tough for her.
For sure, for sure. I think Asian girls, man, I knew it was like this one since I was a kid because I knew some girls that was in college and they took their, like, college trip, and they will always pick Europe, like,
Yeah,
every time, and then g Asian guys was always taking their college trip back to Asia. So, it was just right there,
that
like,
is so funny.
you could see that. That was in my undergrad. I saw that when I was, like, 21.
Yeah, that is so funny because now you mention it, I see it, but, like, I never thought that was a reason. Like, I never thought why.
Yeah, I mean, who are they hooking up with on those trips?
That's true.
Let's be real.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go to the provincial and local stereotypes. And I'm going to start with the north, south, east, because I did a little bit of research with DeepSeek just to see what DeepSeek has to say about the stereotypes. So DeepSeek said for south is interdependent and holistic. And, south meaning Fujian and Guangdong province, right? They're practical, pragmatic, and business savvy, often stereotyped as cunning, shrewd, or deceptive, but also more interdependent and loyal to their in-group. And it says for East, which is, we're talking about the Shanghai area, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Shanghai. So it says we're more shrewd, wealthy, cosmopolitan, coastal elites. Basically, people are very adept at business, living in fast-paced international environments, but they're also very calculating, materialistic, and perhaps a little bit aloof towards those from inland or less developed region. The North are they're more insulated, so they're thought to be more direct, individualistic, and analytical, similar to Westerners, according to DeepSeek. I did not know that. Traits are often linked to a history of wheat farming, which requires less intense cooperation than rice paddies. So I think the reason why we're talking about this topic is because a lot of Chinese Americans, their parents are all from different parts of China, right? And a lot of them don't really know the differences between the different regions, and we think about China as like the whole country as one place. But if you know a little bit of the differences in between different provinces, then you might know yourself a little bit better, right? So that's the premise. And David, what do you think about the explanation from DeepSeek?
I mean, I think it's gotta be true, to be honest. I mean, I think different provinces provide different upbringings and different thinking patterns. If you look in America, most people from Texas act dramatically different from people in Seattle, and people from Seattle act dramatically different from people from Florida. Because America is also a very big country with a lot of different climates. There's this theory that, like, America is actually low key 11 different Americas. There's like Yankee America, there's like
Yeah.
Appalachian America, and all these, like, different civilizational theories. And in America, we don't know the differences either. I think in China, just the provincial things have been that way for, like, so many hundreds or thousands of years that people feel more comfortable speaking on it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that, for me, I have grandparents from Guangdong, I have grandparents from Shanghai, I have grandparents from Shandong. So they all act different. And what they would talk about is different too. Like, people from the north, they do care more about, like, China as like a governmental or like a civilizational, like, nation state bureaucratic entity. I think that people from to your point, Hangzhou, Suzhou, Shanghai, they are more like very cultured and into a lot of art. I feel like they're into really art. You know what I mean? Like Tiantang or the poems and, the all the things.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
it the
Yes.
dynasty, was that centered around Hangzhou? Like, and then the people from
Nansong, the Song
Guangdong.
Dynasty.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's considered a good dynasty too, right? And then, like, the Guangdong has never been the head of any dynasty, to be honest, right? And it's always been
Yeah.
more mercantile and more outward facing and less inward facing. Like, Cantonese people
Yeah.
didn't control a lot of mainland Chinese history. They've always been their own thing. And if anything, they've been fleeing to, not fleeing, but like migrating to Southeast Asia for hundreds or even thousands of years, So I think they are all different. And that affects the brain, and it affects the brain of the second generation kids born in America.
So I know that your mom was from Shandong and your dad is like Hong Kong, like Canton-ish, right? So like how did that affect you growing up?
I mean, I think I just had access to different worlds, like on the Mandarin side, when people hear you're from Shandong, they like it, they're like, oh,
Really?
if you're from like Shandong, and for the old people that care about this old stuff, it means something. And when you say you're from
Yeah.
Guangdong, it's usually in mainland, they'll be like, it's not that. It's like, you know what I mean? But like, but if you're Cantonese in Southeast Asia, it's different too, because you probably ran a lot of economics, and in the Cantonese world, they're gonna think more about their own family and getting money rather than the Chinese narrative. I'm not saying 100 out of 100, but like they're more focused on the clan and what they're doing
Yeah.
than what's happening with everybody. In the North, the Northern Chinese, they concerned with what's happening with like the country. Like, is China doing good? Almost sometimes they could even care as much as what's happening with their own bank account.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
where's the thinking?
Yeah.
Like Fujianese
Yeah.
people, in my opinion, are gonna get rich for themselves and their family, and they don't really care about like what's happening with like not their clan or their family bloodline.
Right.
Like, but that's why they
Yeah.
get rich too. So it's really like, how do you say what's right or what's wrong?
Yeah, yeah. I think that like it's very fascinating to me at least that I did not know that Fujianese people have like a specific stereotype about them, especially in America where like it seems like they run Flushing, right?
Like the Wenzhou people.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So like Wenzhou are because I'm from Zhejiang province, and Wenzhou people are so different from like the mainstream Zhejiang people because they're just like the Jewish of our province, and they will go to a random European country and they will do a small business. They don't necessarily do huge businesses. They really love their autonomy and they don't really care whether it's a bit of nowhere country or a mainstream country. All they see as opportunities. So I think that maybe for that is very similar to Fujianese people. So why do you think that Fujianese people dominate the overseas Chinese business globally? They run factories and restaurants.
I mean, yeah, I think it depends on what sub-region of Fujian you're from. Like in America, to be honest, I think we have both. We got like the gangster Fujianese and the more corporate or like enterprising Fujianese. I know in the Philippines, they just have the enterprising Fujianese. Like, but one thing that I know about Fujianese people is they're just gonna go get to the money. You know what I mean? Like, whether by any means necessary, they're gonna get to the
Mm,
money. And if you look at like Diageo people, like from Caozhou, like Chiuzhou people, that's what we call them, and then like Hokkien people who are generally from the Xiamen region of like Fujian, they left like hundreds of years ago into Southeast Asia, and they have these like even in China to this day, but in Southeast Asia as well, they have these like huis, right? The hui is like a hui, like
yeah.
a little mini society, and
Society.
they can act like a bank or like a loan shark or even like private equity within themselves. But like not every
Yeah.
Chinese province is able to run that. Like I don't think Hainan people or like Guangzhou people or like Guangxi people when they went to Southeast Asia was able to run that internal like hui system, like internal lending,
Yeah.
because it requires quite a
Yeah.
bit of cohesiveness and checks and balances. But like Wenzhou people, Hokkien people, and Diageo people, they are able to run that tight knitness because they still like they feel very clannish and very, you know what I mean. Like you to run that type of system, you have to trust everybody because you're like lending money out
Yeah.
informally. There's no formal structure to recall the money.
Right. Would you say, they're more like Italian American in that sense?
Is that what Italians did? Like Sicilians, kind of? Yeah, I would say some. I would say
Yeah,
so. I would say
right?
so. Like a little bit of mafia vibes, but a lot of like just you know what I mean? Not necessarily like Cuomo and them were not mafia. They were like anti-mafia, but they still ran the same like tight-knit, Sicilian
Yeah.
system. Yeah. I would say so.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
just run anytime you're a tight-knit group, it allow you to run a lot of schemes in your community that a non-tight-knit group is it changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like concentrate amount of power. I mean, I have definitely seen like, actually a friend of mine. So he is Italian American and he's dating a girl who's Fujianese American from Flushing, whose, family run like a few restaurants. I was like, man, maybe they don't look the same on the surface, but I'm pretty sure like they have shared a lot of things in common.
Yeah, their families matter a lot too. Like they're always like, "Yo, my
Yeah.
grandma doesn't like you. My, Nana doesn't like you." Like you hear Fujianese people say that all the time too. Like my mom thinks this about your mom or something. Like no other. I never
Oh my
heard
gosh.
other Chinese people like talk mafia like that. New York FJs, to
Yeah.
be honest.
So I mean, like, but why are they all like? It seems like they have a huge presence in Flushing and like in this like restaurant industry.
They just got the way, man. They just run the system tight. Like there's a lot of plans.
Okay.
Like I don't even want to get into it too much. I got a friend who broke it all down to me who's deep on the inside, but like I don't want to blow anybody's cover, but they just it moves different because I've been in the Cantonese community.
Yeah.
The Cantonese community, they don't even trust each other to run schemes or run plans or complicated structures or Canto people don't even trust each other to like take out the garbage, to be honest, let alone like run
Why?
like a
Why?
informal situation.
Why?
It's because Cantonese people are very different. You could be from like Zhongshan, like Toisan, Jiangmen, you know what I mean? Like people aren't gonna fully like they all speak Canto, but their grandparents or great grandparents probably spoke like a different mountain dialect. They're just not that cohesive because I think Cantonese is a lingua franca. Hokkien,
Yeah.
Teochew, it's not a lingua franca. That belongs to that tribe forever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nobody gonna come in and
Yeah.
learn Hokkien or learn Teochew. That's like if you know speak those, you
Right.
part of the tribe.
Yeah.
So they just
Yeah.
run like I said, any
Okay.
tight knit group globally. I'll tell you this: if you're from a non tight knit group, you don't understand how the tight knit groups operate internally. They can run any scheme.
I don't.
You'll never know about it.
I mean, am I missing out?
Yeah, if you're not from a tight knit group, like that's why you got to be a normie and like rise up and get like all these degrees and like, you know what I mean? Because I know people who
True.
like
True.
everything they did was outside of the public eye, and their family have like $30 million USD, and nobody knew
Yeah.
what the hell they did their whole life. You know what I'm saying? Because think about it: if you got to
Yeah. That's
get these
true.
degrees from
Yeah.
Harvard, and then you got to work your way into Anthropic or OpenAI or whatever is the next booming company, get your stock options, appeal to the other Ivy League CEOs and like C-suite, and then like get your stock options and hope the company 20x's 20x to get 30 million.
Yeah.
That is so different than me and my squad speaking dialect, running, you know what I mean, real estate or whatever things in like
Yeah.
Wisconsin. We run in Chinese buffet,
Yeah.
super buffet. We doing this and that, and we got 30 million. You know how different that is? Like then
That's true.
then you were
Yes.
like
Yeah.
institutionalized and you guys end up with the same amount of money. Like it's so different.
It is very different. But you also mentioned there's institutional Fujianese people in the Philippines. So how do you explain that?
They're from a different part of Fujian. I mean, I'll just say it. There's basically snakehead parts like Sito. There's like snakehead parts, and then there's just parts where people are just want to build some empires.
Mhm.
Do you think this Eastern coastal stereotype of Chinese elitism in the Hangzhou, Suzhou, Shanghai area is justified? Or like where does it come from? Because it is an internal Chinese stereotype that the Jiangzhe region is like all full of like cocky elitists.
Well, I think there's definitely some truth to it. And just some statistics, right, before we talk about the substance. So these areas, we're talking about two provinces and one city. So two provinces are Jiangsu and Zhejiang, and the city is Shanghai. They collectively occupy about 4% of Chinese land, but then they also generate about a quarter of Chinese GDP. So you're talking about a super concentrated piece of land that got a lot of economic activities going on. And in 2024, the regional GDP is about 4 trillion USD dollars, which if it's a country, that it will be a very developed country, it's actually more developed than Korea. We're talking about the fact that these people do have something to go about, right? In terms of their stylishness. If you're looking at doing businesses and where things are going on, you don't necessarily need to go to, for example, Inner Mongolia. You know what I mean? Because like, there are a ton of things going on there. So they are pretty much looking at each other, right? Adjacent city, adjacent provinces for the next action. So I think that it's definitely justified. And I'm not saying that this attitude is good because it does give you like a very silo point of view about what China is. And another thing I noticed about these group of people, and I'm not sure if you agree with it because you told me that your grandpa is from Shanghai, is that they don't really go abroad that much. So like, for example, I'm from Hangzhou and I haven't really met anyone that live in Singapore, like my days in Canada. Not a lot of people are from Hangzhou that live in these places because they actually don't need to go out for opportunities. So usually what happens is that like a lot of these people who, if they do migrate, they come from like a very wealthy background and they just want an opportunity for their kids, education or something like that, for example. I'm not sure if you agree with it just because I heard that your grandpa is from Shanghai.
Yeah, my grandma, Allah yeah, those the Shanghainese. But I would just say that
Okay.
like it's probably true. You know, I think that anybody that's from a very prosperous region of their country internally becomes like a little bit
Yeah.
cocky and can almost turn a little bit like narrow-minded. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
because like you start to believe in your own ism. So I think that that Shanghai
Yeah.
region, Guangzhou, Suzhou, more specifically, Shanghai really wasn't anything until the last couple hundred years. It just always had a lot of wealth. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. It's near the Yangtze River. It's got the ocean. It's natural for the people in Shanghai. If that was the most advanced place in China for like a couple centuries, they're going to just be like, believe in their own exceptionalism. You know, one thing I noticed about like different human nature is like if your province or your city was like the shit for like a few decades or centuries, even if your province or city ceases to be the shit, you still gonna keep that attitude for a long time. If you ever meet people from Spain or like not really
Yeah.
Portugal, but Spain or Italy or France, they still act like they run the world, but America ran the world for the last 100 years, but they still act like it's like
Yeah.
their, you know, the colonial days.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think it's like a part of insecurity as well? Because like a part of them actually does know that it's not the truth anymore. So that's why they have the attitude.
Yeah, I think they know it's not the logical truth, but to them it's still the emotional truth. Like if you talk to people from Spain, they'd be like the most, you know what I mean, the most like proudest person, you know. But Spain probably hasn't been a superpower for like a couple hundred years already.
And they really care about their lineage. Like they will be telling you that, oh, like my ancestor was like playing in, music instruments in this court or whatever. There's like something else that other than money that they focus on because they have such a long history of
Right.
prosperity.
And that, well, to
So
be fair, and this is a little bit of a derivative, that's why Europe, to your point about the Hangzhou people not leaving, that's why Europe has
yeah,
zero good companies in 2026 because they focus too much on heritage and they rely on it
yeah,
to extract like tourism income or wine or cheese money. But it's like that's why they do not care.
yeah.
All of them good companies are in China or America nowadays.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, the world's gonna change, right? Like, and then it's already changing so much. Like, honestly, like living in Shanghai has shown me just the amount of abundance this place has, right? And this part of China. Like, I just think that like the world has not seen it. If you don't live here, you don't know. So I just don't know what's gonna happen in the 5, 10 years, where a lot of these products can go over to other countries and maybe there's going to be more people moving to Asia in the next 5, 10 years. Like, you just don't know what's the new world's order is.
Yeah. And also like how does a GDP affect like somebody's material day-to-day life, you know? Like I think that that's
Yeah.
always a good question because you can look at countries by the individual life or you can look at countries by like a macro GDP number.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why we have GDP per capita PPP adjusted, right? Like a lot of times the purchasing power is so different by region to region. And if you look at China, for example, the GDP per capita, obviously we're still a developing country. But if you look at the standard of living, there is no way that you can convince me this is a developing country, right? Like as I told you, my toilet is heated in this apartment. Like that's a default setting. You go to any other country, you can't possibly convince me that the apartment, the heated toilet is a standard. So, unless it's Japan and then they're
Japan,
like super
maybe.
old and stuff. Yeah, maybe Japan. It's so different. And also because I think that a lot of times, the product is produced here in China. So obviously they're newer, they're cheaper to get. So you can't really have that kind of advantage if you don't live here. And
Yeah,
yeah, your money
there's
goes like a long
advanced
way.
gadgets for like a low amount of money. Like
Yeah.
even a poor person could afford to have like motion sensing lights or motion sensing soap dispensers because it would be like just a few dollars more than a
Just a
manual
few
one.
dollars. Exactly. Exactly. Technology is worth nothing. But anyway, so I have one last question for you. Do you think that you're passport bro? This is
Uh,
just my question.
I don't think so because like I was still dating a lot of chicks in Manhattan. It's more just a different life. I just wanted to have more flexibility with my income too to build out
Yeah,
my team and restructure different
yeah,
businesses. And I just thought that the West was kind of toppy. But the
yeah,
reason why I don't care if people call me that, but I don't really call it that is because I had success in the West as, you know,
yeah,
whether as an individual or as like a company or like a brand. So I think that to me, I'm just like checking out the rise of Asia as an Asian guy, you know. I think that definitely
yeah,
if you're like white or even in, I mean, to be honest, even if you're just anything but Asian, if you're in Asia, you're probably like utilizing some sort of soft power arbitrage, you know, like maybe a black guy is going to cosplay a rapper or a basketball player. Maybe a white guy is going to
yeah,
cosplay like Timothy Chalamet or Ryan Gosling or like whatever archetype they can subsume, you know, in the world that doesn't have that. But like for me, when I'm in Asia, like most people are gonna just speak the native language to me. I was in Cambodia, they were speaking Cambodian to me because like there's a lot of Chinese in Cambodia too. So it's like to me, I'm just like, yeah, I'm
yeah.
just an Asian representing Asia.
Uh, Even me, I felt that way because I was from a very white part of Canada. Coming to Singapore, I just definitely felt like I was part of the group. It's such a refreshing feeling. Yeah, thank you so much, David. It's great conversation. Always enjoy talking to you.
No, for sure. And I really appreciate the Asian Rebel Club and everything you're doing with the Instagram because you're the only one where I've seen Asian guys send your videos in the thread.
I'm really flattered.
If this conversation sparked something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you are building a more true life, not just more impressive, we would love to hear your story. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Asian Rebel Club and join our newsletter for more ways to connect. Link in the description. Until next time.